Hey everyone, Miss Voke here, and this is with your only video for this week. So upon looking at what you guys were turning in for your angles, I decided that we're going to take one extra day just to go over the basic definitions and maybe dumb things down a little bit and have some more basic problems, okay? So for vertical angles, those are always equal, okay? So looking over here to the right at our drawing, you're always going to have two lines intersecting like this. So I'm going to go ahead and label these 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now your vertical angles are also always going to be opposite of one another. So here I'll do this in orange. Angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. Those two are going to be equal. And then angle 4 and angle 2 are going to be equal. So again, I'm going to say angle 1 and angle 3, and then angle 2 and angle 4. So whenever you have two lines intersecting like that, you're always going to have two sets of vertical angles. Now for complementary angles, these add up to 90 degrees, and they form usually what's called a right angle. So this little square here, remember, that's just representing that you have 90 degrees. So if I went ahead and drew in a line here, and I had angle 1 and angle 2, those would be complementary. Or technically, those angles don't actually have to touch. So pretend I had angle 3 here and then angle 4 here. They're not touching, right? Let's say angle 3 was equal to 60 degrees and angle 4 is equal to 30 degrees. Since 60 plus 30 does equal 90, angle 3 and angle 4 are also still complementary, even though they're not touching, okay? So that's really important to know. All right. Now, for supplementary angles, those are going to add up to 180. And remember, whenever you have 180, that's when you have a perfectly straight line, okay? So in this picture, if we have angles, let's say 1, 2, and 3, those are going to be supplementary because they are all on that straight line. They're all going to add up. Now, same idea as above, though. They don't have to actually touch. We could say angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3. Pretend we had all those. Let's say angle 1 was equal to 20, angle 2 was equal to, 60, and we'll say angle 3 was equal to 100. Since 100 plus 20 plus 60 equals 180, those do check out, and they would be complementary. They would be supplementary, okay? Now, adjacent angles share two things. That's a vertex and one side. So an example of that would be if we have, let's say we have this angle here, okay? Angle 1 and angle 2. Right here is their shared vertex, that dot, and then this side right here, that's their shared side. They only share one side, so they would be adjacent, okay? Now, let's draw a little bit more complicated of a shape here. Okay, let's say I had 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I wanted angle 3 only. What angles are adjacent to angle 3? So my first step is looking at where my vertex is, okay? So notice that that's still sharing angles, or sharing the vertex for all those angles, but we want it to share exactly one side. So right here, angle 4 shares exactly one side, and angle 2 shares exactly one side. So angle 3 and angle 4 are adjacent, and angle 3 and angle 2 are adjacent. Angle 3 is not adjacent to angle 1 because they're never sharing a side. And finally, this is the only really new vocabulary word, and it's a linear pair, and that's when two adjacent angles add up to 180. So linear pair is always supplementary too, always going to add up to that 180. So again, you're always going to have a straight line, and then you're only going to have two angles. Here, notice they share their vertex and they share one side. So angle 1 and angle 2 would be a linear pair. All right, so moving on, we got 6 examples here, and they're really similar to some of your Edulastic ones, so hopefully that will help you. So looking down here at number 1, we have a little bit different of a problem than what we were talking about the angles up above. So remember back to your last packet, we had that very front, there was a skier. So if I can draw a circle around all of these, since clearly these angles aren't equal, they're not complementary, they're not supplementary, any of that stuff, we can see that we have a circle, and remember, anytime you have a circle, that always adds up to 360 degrees. So all we have to do is set up an equation. So we know x plus 73 plus 125 is going to be equal to that 360. So we just have to find our x now, just a regular solving equations problem. So what I'm going to do first is combine my like terms. So over here on my left side, I have two numbers. 73 plus 125 is 198. And keep your 360. And now it's just to solve for x. So I want to get that x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 198 on both sides. And by this point, you should be pretty comfortable with solving for equations, since we've been doing that the last 3-4 weeks now. X would equal 162. Okay? All right. Moving on to number 2 here. Notice we have two lines intersecting, so we definitely have some vertical angles here, okay? And vertical angles are always equal, so I'm going to go ahead and set up that equation to solve for x. And now I want to get my x's all on one side, so I'm going to go ahead and move that x from the left to the right. I'm going to keep my 17 equals, now I have 2x plus 7. And again, I want that x by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and move my 7 over. So I have 10 is equal to 2x, and how do I get x by itself? Undo multiplying by 2, so I'm going to divide by 2, and I get x is equal to 5. Okay? All right, number 3 should be a really straightforward one. Notice right away we have a very straight line here, so that x plus 123, that's a linear pair. Okay, I'll shorten that, linear pair, or supplementary. So those definitely are going to add up to 180. So again, to get that x by itself, I'm just going to subtract 123 on both sides. All right. Oops, I shouldn't have put equals 123. Subtract 123. There we go. So I have my x left here on the left, and on the right, 180 minus 123 is 57. All right. Over here on the right side, again, we have another perfectly straight line, but now we just have 3 angles. So they're still going to be supplementary. So that means that they're going to add up to 180, but they're not a linear pair because we have more than 2 angles. Okay. So here's my original equation. So again, I can combine my like terms here on the left first. 71 plus 44 is, let's see here, why can I not do this in my head? 71 plus 44 is 115. All right, and that's equal to 180. So again, I want that x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 115 on both sides, and x is going to be equal to 65. Okay. All right, number 5, we have what kind of angles are A and B. So A and B, notice right away, we have this little square. So right away, we know that that's 90 degrees. So what kinds of angles add up to 90 degrees? That's complementary. So we know right away that they're complementary, but I did mention that these are 2 kinds of angles. So notice they both share a vertex right away. They both also happen to share one side. So they are also adjacent angles. So you have to be careful. They can be multiple different kinds, okay? All right, and our final question here. I know it looks a little complicated, but I promise you this isn't as bad as it looks. So right away, I noticed that I have 2 lines intersecting right here, okay? So right away, I know that I have vertical angles. That 20 and that M, here I'll put them in pink here, 20 and M are definitely going to be equal because they're vertical angles. So all we have to say for our solving for M is M equals 20. Easy enough. Then we also can see that we have a perfectly straight line right here. So that means that P plus M, I'm going to actually say vertical angles right here. So P plus M is on a straight line, so we know that those added together have to be 180. So this is a linear pair, or we could say supplementary. So since we already know what that M is, all we're going to do is replace it. So P plus 20 is going to equal 180. And what plus 20 is equal to 180? If you can't do that in your head, again, make sure you subtract on both sides. And we should get P is equal to 160. Okay? And our last part of this problem. Notice right here on the left, we have a little square. So we know that this angle right here is 90 degrees. We also see that we have our straight line from before, okay? And we have 3 angles on top of that straight line. So we know that 90 plus 2x plus that 20 is going to be equal to 180 because they're supplementary. They're on that straight line, okay? So again, I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. So 90 and 120 is 110. Write everything else out. Now I want to solve for my x, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract that 110 over on both sides. And I'm left with 2x is equal to 70. And how do I solve for x? Instead of multiplying by 2 to undo that, I'm going to divide by 2. And I get x is equal to 35. Okay? So hopefully that made this problem a little bit more simple. You have one exactly like this on Edulastic. I just changed the numbers, okay? So please refer back to this if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out to me at any time.